Hey guys, my name is Isaac, and today we're going to be talking about disc selection for beginners and how to find the right disc for you. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start off with some basic things you need to know about the flight of a disc, some starter packs and different options with that, and if the starter packs aren't for you, a different route that you can take. So for the flight of the disc, there are kind of three categories that we can really put it into. That is overstable, stable, and understable. So what overstable is when you throw it. So if I'm throwing backhand, the disc is want to go left. It's going to want to finish left. For most of its flight, it's just going to go left. That's pretty much what overstable is. What stable is if I'm throwing backhand again, it's just going to want to go straight for most of its flight. And it may have some right finish, left finish, just depending on how you throw it, but it pretty much just means that it's a straight flying disc. And understable means that the disc is gonna want to finish right 90% of the time. So if I'm throwing backhand, it's gonna go straight for a while, and then it's gonna dip off to the right. Depending on how understable it is, it could ride straight longer, or it could just dump off. Okay, starter packs. So there are a couple things that you should know about starter packs. The first being that there are different kinds of starter packs. So they typically are going to start out with 3 discs, and that's going to be your least expensive option. And then they can go into 4 or 5 discs with a water bottle, a mini maybe, and a bag, but those ones are going to be more expensive. So for the sake of the video, I'm just going to go with the 3-disc starter pack. And kind of what you're going to see in a 3-disc starter pack is a fairway of some sort, a mid-range, and a putter. And something you're going to notice is that the speed of the discs are a lot slower. And this is super important for beginners because the slower speed disc requires less arm speed, less power. So it's going to make it a lot easier for you to throw and get the full flight and the full distance out of your shots, especially for people who have never thrown a disc before. And then you're going to notice that the weights in the starter packs are going to be typically a little bit lighter. The weight usually ranges from about 150 grams to 180 grams. And kind of how the weight plays into it is it just requires, for a lower weight, it requires less arm speed and less power to get the disc to actually fly the full flight. Like when you're watching the pros, you'll see maybe Paul Macbeth or Paige Pierce, how their discs kind of like flex out and get a lot of distance. And the lower weight for beginner players is just going to make it a little bit easier to get that full flight and more control on the disc. So let's get into the starter packs that I found. I found all of these on Amazon. You can find them on the manufacturer's website as well. I just went with Amazon, and I'll start with the cheapest and the most expensive on my list. So let's start off with the Innova starter pack. It's gonna come with a leopard, a shark, and an aviar. And the leopard is typically gonna be a little bit more of an understable fairway, meaning that when you throw it, it's gonna have some finish to the right, or it's gonna finish pretty straight. And during the flight, it might go to the right and come back a little bit. So that's typically what that disc is gonna do. And then we have the shark, which is more of a stable mid-range. So for the most part, it's going to go pretty straight, and then at the end, it's going to have a pretty consistent finish to the left. And then the aviar is going to be a pretty stable putter. So when you throw it, it's going to go straight for a long ways, and then it'll either fall on that straight path, or it'll have a little finish to the left or a little finish to the right, just depending on how you throw it. and that pack is going to be around $19.99. The next pack I found is the Discraft starter pack. The first disc you're going to see is an Avenger SS, and the Avenger SS is a pretty unstable disc, so when you throw it, it's going to finish right pretty consistently. Depending on how you throw it, you might be able to get it to go straight for a long ways, and even finish on that straight flight path. The next disc is going to be the Buzz. The Buzz is arguably the best mid-range in disc golf. You're going to hear it a lot, and you're going to hear a lot of people suggest that you use this disc. And the Buzz is pretty straight. It's going to be a stable fairway, so it'll go straight for a really long time, and drop on that straight path, or maybe finish a little to the right, a little to the a little to the left and a little bit to the right, just depending on how you throw it. And then for the putter, it's going to be a magnet. The magnet is going to fly a lot shorter than most putters if you're throwing it. So it's just going to go straight and kind of just drop on that straight path. But you can manipulate it a lot, just like most of the discs on the list. So depending on how you throw it, it could go a little left and a little right, but that just depends on how you throw it. And that is typically going to be, or in that starter pack is going to be $24.24. And for the last starter pack that I found is the Prodigy Ace Line starter pack. The first disc that you're going to see is a F Model S. And this disc is going to go pretty straight for the most part, but this one you can really work. So depending on how you throw it, it's going to hold that line for a long ways. So if you throw it flat, it's going to go straight for pretty much most of the flight, and it might have some finish to the left and maybe to the right. Or if you throw it on a little bit of anhyzer, it'll go to the right, and a little bit hyzer, it'll go to the left, just like all of the other discs. The next disc in the pack is going to be an M Model OS, and like the Shark, this disc is going to go straight for a long time, and then it's going to have a pretty consistent finish to the left. Depending on how you throw it, you might even be able to get it to go straight for the whole flight path. And the putter in the Prodigy starter pack is going to be a P Model S. So this disc is going to want to go straight for pretty much the entire flight, but you can work it left to right on the end, just depending on how you throw it. And this starter pack is going to be $28.48. Okay, so for those of you who don't think that the starter packs are meant for you, and you just want to get right into buying discs and building your own bag, here are some tips that have really helped me become the player that I am today. So the first one is finding a disc that is understable. We kind of talked about the different stabilities a little bit earlier, but what finding an understable disc is going to do for you is it's going to allow you to get more distance, and you're going to be able to see the actual flight of the disc. So what you're going to find when you first start out is you're going to throw it on a hyzer release. And what this is it's pretty much just when you're pointing the disc towards the ground. That's the easiest thing to remember. So when you start out, you're going to be throwing it like this. And with an understable disc, throwing it at this angle, it's going to be able to pop up and go straight for a lot longer. And this is super beneficial, like I said, because it'll allow you to get that extra distance, and you'll actually be able to see the flight of the disc. Whereas if you had an overstable disc and you throw it like that, it's just going to want to dump to the left, and you're going to sacrifice a lot of distance, and you aren't really going to be able to learn the flight of the disc. And the second one is the speed of the disc. So like I said earlier, the slower speed discs are going to be super beneficial for your form and technique down the road. And the discs that I would kind of recommend would be a putter, a mid-range, and a fairway. Staying in that kind of range of discs is going to be super beneficial for your form, and it's just going to be a lot easier to throw, especially starting out. So I actually have 3 discs here that kind of cover the 3 categories of discs that beginners should try to focus on. This is my putting putter. This is a P Model US made by Prodigy. I really like this putter because it doesn't have a bead. You'll see right here that it kind of just goes down. A lot of putters are going to have little beads on the end right here, and that can be super comfortable for other people, but for personal preference, I don't like the bead. And the most important thing when you're finding a putter is finding a putter that is comfortable to you. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to have a comfortable grip. You're not going to be worried about, grip issues while you're putting, and it's going to build confidence as you're putting. And you're going to knock down a lot more putts down the road if you're using a putter that is comfortable to you. And next up, we have a mid-range. And this is actually a buzz. This is, I talked about it a little bit earlier, one of the most well-known discs in disc golf, and arguably the best mid-range in disc golf as well. This is a super good beginner disc just because of how stable it is. You'll be able to learn kind of angle control and speed control while using this disc. So what that means is pretty much whatever angle you throw it on. So let's say you throw it on a hyzer, it is going to want to ride out that hyzer all the way, and it's going to do a really good job of kind of finding some stability, getting up, and then finishing left. And if you throw it on a little bit of anhyzer, it's going to go really far and then finish right. So this is a super good disc for beginners to learn kind of different angles and different speeds that you should throw. And the last disc we have is the Innova Leopard. I talked about this earlier as well. This is a super good fairway to start out with. I know I started out with it and I learned a lot of my form technique with this disc. So I might be a little bit biased towards it, but it's definitely good. Something that you'll notice is it is in a DX kind of plastic, which is known as a cheaper plastic. This plastic is really good for beginners to learn on. They're also the cheapest option of plastic. But for me personally, in my bag, I have some of these, some discs that are in the cheaper plastic, and they can be super beneficial down the road to learn on. I like using the cheaper plastics, or the harder plastics, if you will, to grab the grass a little bit better. I found that for plastics like this, they really just want to hit the ground and stop. So learning on this disc is going to be super beneficial. Thank you guys for watching. If you found this video beneficial, don't forget to come back next week for more content.